This video, we're going to code a main menu and we're going to code buttons too. Check this out. If I click new game, it goes right into the game. And then if I hit the escape key, it goes right back to the main menu. The code is in the link in the description below. The background you saw for the main menu is in the code. I'll link to this as well. Our main menu has two buttons. And buttons are going to need to use the mouse. First, update our input. Go ahead and jump into core and we'll go to input.py. Inside of our input, we're going to import Pygame. And we're also going to do the following method here. Get pressed gives you a list of all the different mouse buttons and whether they've been pressed or not. We're going to check which button it is. Next, let's go ahead and code buttons. So jump into your components and we'll create a new file called button.py. The key to buttons are two things. One is the function that you're gonna call, and the second is the click area, or the area that the user needs to click in order for the button to do that. Think of functions like blocks of code, basically calling some code if this button is clicked. Next, to set everything up, go ahead and get the current position of the mouse, and also we'll get the X and Y of the button, which is the top left corner of the button. We're going to check two things. One, that the left mouse button has been clicked. Is mouse pressed? 0, meaning the first mouse button or the left mouse button. You can increase this number to do different buttons. And then we're also going to do another if statement. We're going to check if the mouse is inside of the button. And if it is, we're going to call self.on, whatever that function is that you passed earlier. This is really kind of a nice way of doing it. Again, buttons, they don't need to know what function it is. All they know is I have a function and I'm going to call it. You might have noticed earlier that the buttons that we had for the main menu were text. We can actually get the exact size of that text by adding something to our label class. Text is actually kind of difficult to exactly measure. Notice that the I is significantly smaller left and right than the T. The width of T is actually bigger than the width of the I. And so every single character is different. And in order to get the exact size of all the text, you really need to sort of count up all of the letters. But there's an even easier way to do this. When Pygame renders the text, it returns a surface. I'm in label.py. It returns a surface, and you can actually get the size of that surface and know how big it is. We're going to add in label.py a function called getBounds, which will create a rectangle of the size of that text. We're going to get surface.getWidth and surface.getHeight. Now that we have everything set up, let's actually go to our menu. So we'll come into stages and menu.py. We originally left this code blank, but now we're going to put something in there. First, we're going to add the functions that the buttons are going to call. So basically each button that you have on your main menu, you'll just have a function for it. So the first button is going to be the new game button, and all it's going to do is tell the engine to switch to the play stage. So it'll actually just switch to the gameplay. It'll load the game and run it. We're also going to have another function called quit game, and this is going to load the engine again. We're going to import it, and then we're going to come in and just tell the engine that it's not running anymore, and it will stop the game loop and stop the entire game. As you add more buttons to your main menu, you'll just basically add more functions here for what these buttons do. We're going to end up needing the following things. We're going to use entities, buttons, labels, and we're also going to do something with our sprite class here in a second for the background. Now we're going to go ahead and add our buttons to our menu stage. So we've got our new game button and our quit game button. They're just entities, just like anything else. We're not going to add the button to it, the button component to it yet, but we will add labels to them. The labels are going to load the font. They're going to have this text. The text size is going to be 80. And then we're also going to, change the color to yellow. You can obviously put your own values into there. And just one thing to note, the color is actually optional, so you don't need to specify it. Like you could just get rid of it if you wanted to, but in this case, you can optionally specify a color, and we're gonna put yellow. From this point, let's go ahead and now go to our main.py, and we'll change the switch to menu, and we'll run our game. If you take a look at the game right now, the labels are they're basically on top of each other. They've both spawned to the top left corner. So let's go ahead and let's move those. Jump back into your menu.py file. I think we should put the buttons in the middle of the screen. And in order to do that, we need to know how big they are. I'll show you why in a second. We're going to call the get bounds function that we added to the label and get each one of the rectangles for how big the new game button is and then how big the quit game button is. With the sizes, you can now actually put these in the center. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to get the center of the screen, so camera.width divided by 2, and then we'll subtract it from the new button size .width minus 2. So you're going from the center of the screen, and then you're going to go half of whatever the size is back, and that will put it in the middle of the screen. We're also going to change the Y value too as well to move it down a little bit. If we run our game now, jump into main.py and run it, we now have the buttons positioned a little bit better. Go back to your menu.py file. Components can be added to later. So we're just going to come in here into each one of these entities. We're going to add a button component. The first argument is the function that you want to call, which is up here. So it'll end up actually calling this new game function whenever the button gets clicked on. Also, we optionally can provide a size. So we're going to provide basically the size of the text itself for each one of these buttons. Let's come in here up into main.py, and we're going to go ahead and hit the run button. And there we go. We have our labels. Let's come in here and we'll click the new game button, and let's just make sure everything's good. And it crashed. In recording this, I got sort of a really strange error that happened all of a sudden. And I want to show you a fix for that if you're hitting this. Go into sprite.py. The import for the engine is here. Let's move this. We'll go ahead and move this into the constructor, and that will go and do that. And we'll go ahead and jump into line 20 and we'll paste here. The reason why is that engine possibly might be nothing. And this should fix that. It should import the engine a little bit later into the code so that we can then append it. My apologies for any sort of confusion on that. So this is in sprite.py. Go ahead and just import the engine here and here. With that being said, let's go ahead and run it now. And we should have a main menu. Go ahead and click New Game, and you should be in the game. And like the last video, you should be able to hit the escape key and go back to the main menu. And then go ahead and try it again. Try to come back into the game. Go ahead and hit the escape key and hit the quit button and see if it correctly quits the game. And you can actually see down here in the terminal that each time that you did that, it's switching to a different state. Now this is kind of boring. And one solution to this is we could render a background here. Go ahead and jump into sprite.py. Some of the sprites should be part of the UI. You might have images inside of your user interface, like a background. Let's go up here to the constructor. Add the following variable, is UI equals false. By default, we're going to basically say that this isn't part of the UI, but it could be. Go ahead and keep track of whether it is part of the user interface or not. Next, we're going to get rid of or replace this line of code with the following. If we are part of the UI, we're going to add ourselves to the UI drawables. Otherwise, we're going to add ourselves to just the regular drawables that get drawn with the game world itself. We're going to make a slight modification to our draw function. Go ahead and add the following code. The sprite will be positioned based on where the camera is if it's part of the world. If it's not part of the world, if it's part of the user interface, like it's a background or icon, then it won't be. So we won't care about the camera. We won't do any math with the camera. Also, change this line now to use the position instead. With that being said, let's go to main menu.py. Go ahead and add the following, and we'll add it before our other entities. That way it will draw before the other ones. We're going to use the main menu.png file, which you can find here in the images. Link in the description below if you'd like to download this image. We're going to use this as our background. Go ahead now and we'll test it. Jump into main.py and we'll run it. And congratulations, we now have a main menu with a background. And you can add more buttons to this as well. But let's just test and make sure that everything works. Yep, there we go. We're now in the game. And just also make sure, just go to like a different area, go back, hit escape, and we're back to the main menu. We need a pause button. We probably need a way to save the game, but this is an enormous amount of progress. And you can now switch between different stages of your game, and the main menu sort of facilitates that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video is beneficial for you. Again, all of the code is in the link in the description below, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.